welcome to Otaku Saga. I'm Zero.
I'm DK.
And I'm Rizzo, and today on Anime Reaction, we watched the second episode of Youjo Senki. If you want to check out our reaction to the second episode of the Saga of Tanya the Evil, hit that link in the description below.
And be sure to give us feedback in the comment section because we love hearing from you.
And as always, if you like what you see, subscribe to Otaku Saga. And don't forget to like and share our videos.
And thanks for watching. So, as I suspected before we watched it, this episode was mainly about Tanya's backstory. As in the backstory of her being a male salaryman in Japan.
So, in Japan, 2013. And very ruthless. We made the comparison to the Bobs from Office Space.
Yeah, that's something I want to point out. Like, in all the materials that I'd seen before we watched this, it just said salaryman. The job that he actually worked, which was basically a business consultant or an efficiency consultant.
Or business analyst.
Yeah, business analyst. They have a lot of names for that type of job, but it's all basically the same thing.
Assholes that try
you
to
come in, analyze. Well, you come in, analyze. You know, analyze the employees and how the business is run, and then you make the most appropriate firings. Basically, basically you're a business cleaner. You take out the trash. But it's a very obviously hated profession.
Obviously. You fire people for a living.
Yeah, you fire people for a living. And then, especially in Japan, where it's really hard to move to another job after you lose one, I'm sure that particular job is even more hated over there.
Well, definitely hated enough to get our boy here pushed into the path of an oncoming train.
Yeah, basically we see him firing his last person.
And then his services were no longer required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically he fired this guy, and then he, proceeded to leave and go to the train station. And as he's waiting for the train, just kind of zoning out, the guy that he fired comes up behind him and pushes him onto the train tracks right when the train's about to show up. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, and then God stops time. Or the devil, whichever you want.
Being X.
Being X.
The X!
Yeah, stops time while he's in mid-fall, and then speaks to him through basically every living being that's there.
Well, I believe it was more God, or the incarnation of God.
Well, yeah, it would probably be what most people would consider to be God. It's a supreme being.
Or more in, say, D&D terms, either true neutral or lawful good and deity.
Yeah.
Definitely not like a chaotic evil one.
Yeah.
I would probably put it more towards neutral, though, because probably more like a good neutral or something of that nature.
Lawful neutral.
Or lawful neutral. Basically, this omnipotent being stops time to talk to him because he doesn't believe in God. And this being is so tired of having so many souls to preside over, that he's basically like, well, if you don't believe them, I'm not going to reincarnate you because there's no fucking point.
I actually kind of like that. A deity with a sense of humanity. Actually, that whole scene reminds me of some of the trials in Death Parade.
Well, at least there was one character with some humanity there.
Right.
Because he definitely didn't have any.
But yeah, I mean, just the whole, just that slight veneer of creepiness when, being X starts talking through everyone who was supposedly frozen in time, but when they start talking, it's like, oh, hey, what the hell? And then you get babies and pigeons involved, and it makes it even all the more creepier.
I think it was the pigeon that creeped me out the most.
Yeah.
A real angry bird. Those eyes just...
It's not as fun in real life.
I know.
Angry birds.
Take a whole bunch of
But
shit.
yeah, basically, they go back and forth for a little bit, and...
And our boy, he's actually lecturing God on how to run the fucking universe, or at least,
basically saying,
for, right?
"Oh well, if you're overworked, then your business model is flawed." It failed.
Beautiful.
Wow.
You know what? You could make like an entire OVA of just a conversation like that.
Right.
I would watch the shit out of that.
And then I do want to point out that it was a very beautifully animated scene as well.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, I mean it's raining and all that stuff. The slow motion,
beautifully animated, beautifully like worked all around. Like the voice work was pretty interesting too.
Yeah. But basically, he ends up accidentally saying, you know, if he were put into dire straits, then maybe he would believe.
and
Or
that's
something to that effect, and the god's basically like,
is
oh,
that right?
really? Well, then how about we put you in those dire straits?
How about we put you in World War I?
Or
Well, technically, no. Technically,
World War I.
he's in a different world, but it's just really, really fucking similar.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like not even just similar, like almost exactly the same, except for the names of the places.
everything's just bland named.
Everything's just bland name. Well, not even everything, because like, I guess moving a little bit forward here, when the Empire, which I mean technically Germany back then
It
was
was
an
an
empire,
empire. You're right.
ruled by the Kaiser. But when the Empire was going up against the enemy alliance, they actually referred to it as the Entente forces, which is what the Allied forces were referred to as in World War One.
Oh, okay.
They're, you know, the combined might of all the countries that were against the Central Powers.
Against Wilhelm on the wreck shit.
Yeah. Well, Wilhelm and Austria-Hungary. But
Everyone pissed off over
Basically.
Duke Ferdinand's assassination, right?
pissed off at Duke Ferdinand's assassination. That was more like an excuse than anybody actually giving a fuck about him.
Yeah. I think like a good fiction author could be hard pressed to write a storyline as complex as the string of treaties
Yeah.
that triggered the First World War.
Yeah, let's definitely not go into that. Maybe I'll make a supplementary episode or something talking about it.
Well,
No, I'm sure.
But
it's
I don't. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
but-
think we should really talk about it during the actual episode discussions.
Yeah, true. And this
But-
ain't a war channel either. It's an anime channel still.
Yeah, but basically, so the salaryman, I don't think we ever actually got his name.
No.
Um,
It's just
he's
imagine
like-
on a trophy of his because it did zoom in
well,
on that.
yeah.
but
Basically, he starts like freaking out right before
it's like,
the
wait,
end,
what?
and he starts trying to move, and then the divine being restarts time and
Splat.
yep.
A very painful physics lesson.
And then the next thing he knows, he's waking up as an
Orphan baby girl.
orphan baby girl in totally not the German Empire.
that would probably be the worst part of reincarnation.
Yeah,
Is
the worst.
remembering the world before.
Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
that would be torture for many years, where you're basically stuck in this infant's body, but in his case, he remembers everything.
Could be worse. At least he was still born a human.
True.
I mean, what if he was born like, say, an earthworm? A few feet away from a tree with a bird nest.
Yeah, pretty much.
Doesn't
But
it?
yeah, so we get to see bits and pieces of her now.
Yeah,
I will
her.
refer to her as a her.
Locked in place, completely different life. It's a her.
Yeah. So we get to see bits and pieces of her early childhood. She grows up as an orphan in a very, very poor rural town.
Basically Annie with a mean streak.
Yeah.
Or at least, maybe not an
she-
overt mean streak. She's kind of like her whole policy for surviving is just kind of keep your head low and just survive.
Yeah, she's
Seems.
she gets to see the worst in humanity, I think. And then he goes on to explain that just the little differences about the world. Basically, you get the whole preparing, the run up towards World War One. While she's still a child, but then also explains the presence of magic in the world, and basically how that's, I guess, how that kind of affects the world.
So it's more like just a random trait in some people.
Yeah, basically,
Their aptitude
when
for it.
you're given a physical, which all the children at the orphanage were given physicals, they test you for your magical aptitude, and she tested very high. Like, she is very, very apt with magic.
So naturally, the military were going to come conscript her, but
Well,
having the knowledge she has.
yeah, basically, she realizes that when she gets older, she's going to be conscripted into the military anyway. So she figures, well, if I'm going to have to join the military anyway, I might as well just go ahead and volunteer. That way I can become an officer and get a cush desk job, and
Have a
In
cush
the
life
background.
early on. Early on.
yeah. Which, I mean, is really not a bad plan considering that she's, coming from a very poor orphan lifestyle. Becoming an officer is probably one of the easier paths to having a cushy lifestyle later in life. Because then you start, especially back then you start, basically getting into the upper echelons of society. And also, it's in her best interest to make sure that the Empire wins the war, instead of what actually happened.
And then we continue on. It goes through her training, which looks hilarious.
Yeah,
Right,
we kept
full on.
laughing because, like, it's showing this platoon of soldiers standing in formation, and it's like, dude, her. Dude.
It actually reminds me of a picture that my dad had, and it was a line of really tall Russian dudes, and it's like they're huge Russian dudes, and then my dad was like,
His dad's short.
it was really amusing, and it was all the Russians are like this much higher than him. Oh, it was hilarious. But yeah, I can only think about that while watching.
Yeah.
Dude, Tanya.
But yeah, so we get to see a little bit of her training, and then she becomes a warrant officer.
Kind of a quick rise of the ranks.
Yeah, and she's given, I guess she's given,
A training platoon overall.
yeah, basically it's her training a platoon, but she's also in training to be an actual officer, is what it is.
So she's kind of a company leader during basic training or something?
No, it'd probably be like a platoon leader. Yeah.
And then you get the ruthless.
Yeah, and then that's when the ruthlessness comes out, and actually I should probably pull up the character page because I can't remember that guy's name. But the guy with the glasses and the funky haircut, that's where we see
hipster
their
hair.
Which
yeah.
I found out is not the same voice actor as Barrackman. Well, it certainly sounds similar.
Well, similar character archetype, I'm sure. Well,
But
maybe this guy's a little more.
which one was he?
Eric. Hans von.
Eric von.
Eric
Rarigan.
von Rarigan is the character's name in this.
Okay.
But yeah, so we see his first introduction to her, which is basically she can't get any respect from the men in her platoon because she's at this point like a 7-year-old girl.
So she does what any responsible officer candidate does: shoots them.
Well,
She
she shoots at them.
Shoots at them.
Basically blows them out of the building and then jumps down into the courtyard and proceeds to line up one of their heads with the end of her rifle, getting ready to shoot him in the head.
I will etch the rules into your skull.
I will open up your skull and etch them into your brain. Settle down, Satan.
Scary as shit.
Yeah.
Vintage Tanya.
Which explains why Eric is so... yeah.
When touching
The
a
hell
6
is
foot
she
pole.
doing on the front lines?
Right.
Exactly that.
And then we get to see a bit with her, I guess, training to do patrols with the little flying device. And during that, oh, by the way, she was moved up to the northern front, which I guess it's not really a front, it's a border at this point. And so she's basically doing training patrols of the border, and then they get intelligence that an Entente like company or battalion or whatever is moving into their territory. So she's field promoted from warrant officer to second lieutenant, and then ordered to spot for artillery. So yeah, and then I did want to point out the difference between actual World War I and what's happening here is that instead of being kicked off by like the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, this one, it looks like it's going to be started because of the events here, really. Because
border skirmish.
The Entente forces were originally planning on just basically doing a show of force.
Yeah.
But because they violated the border, they ended up being annihilated.
They get fired upon, and then Tanya happens.
Yeah, then Tanya happens.
So
she's very successful in spotting for the artillery. I mean, she basically gets the artillery to almost completely wipe out the enemy battalion.
it's interesting that they didn't call out to said battalion first, which is probably why there was probably why the whole war started, is because there wasn't a you are invading said territory.
Yeah.
You need to turn around and leave.
Yeah. Well, obviously we didn't see like the actual run up to what happened.
Yeah.
We just see the actual event itself, so maybe they had received warnings.
Well, actually, yeah, it might be a good time to introduce the sort of like that flight of mages from the Entente forces.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm assuming, I just kind of looking at how they're referring to the structure of the mages, it looks like a platoon of mages only consists of like between 5 and 10 mages. And then so she runs into what she calls a company size, which appears to have somewhere between like 10 and 20 mages.
Well, I guess they're basing that off of combat effectiveness. The mage has the combat effectiveness of several men.
Yeah, probably.
So it might explain that logic there.
But yeah, so we're introduced to this company-sized force of mages that are from totally not whatever Scandinavian country that is. By the way, I really like their magical flying gear, the skis. It just really fits.
Cultural stereotyping in your mecha weaponry and all that.
Well, it's better than the French's fucking horses. Those looked ridiculous.
But both of those, the skis and the horses, totally remind me of G Gundam.
At least the horses didn't gallop.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Just try to imagine that.
No. Like, could you? Could you
going
imagine
like
the
this
actual
all the
like?
way through the air?
Oh man,
that would have sucked.
Yeah, you'd make a new biological weapon of everyone puking on the enemy.
Then you'd have to hire a bunch of guys to follow him around with coconuts. But
that'd be pretty awesome, actually. Like a sci-fi Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Okay.
Anyway, so they're flying around. They, notice that the battalion of infantry below them has been annihilated. So they're like, well, we might not be able to take care of all the artillery, but we could kill their spotter. That was their first mistake.
Well, I think that they probably could have.
If it were just any ordinary spotter.
Well, I mean, from what we saw in the first episode, that's probably the go-to tactic is to kill the spotters, because we saw several spotters in the first episode get killed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you take out the eyes of the artillery, then they're inaccurate, and that's better odds for your soldiers on the ground.
Exactly.
So in terms of just standard operations, yeah, take out the spotter and
Especially if it's just one and you literally outnumber 10, 20 to 1.
yeah.
Yeah.
It should have been
Been a cakewalk.
But yeah, so Tanya is ordered to move forward to the next line, and while she's flying, she ends up running into magical interference for her radio. I still want to point out how technologically advanced those radios are for the time, but it is an alternate world, so.
there's an alternate.
Yes.
Also, I think the artillery pieces themselves were a little bit technologically advanced for the time period they're trying to portray.
I think that was actually one of the comments in the last episode was there was a couple of things that were a little bit too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the artillery, maybe not like World War II, but at least inner warriors, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, even the well, I do know from the first episode that a lot of the events are taking place actually in the 1920s rather than the teens.
Sure.
So maybe in this World War I started a few years later. Okay. But even like the rifles that they use are more technologically advanced than you would see because they have magazines. The typical rifles that you would see in World War One, they'll have like internal magazines where you're able to like put in like 5 bullets or whatever. But they don't have the standard box magazines where you just drop one and put it in and then you're ready to go.
So it's like what bolt action or something with a small.
I don't know if it's bolt action or not. They probably are, but I do know you like pull the bolt back and then you have it's like a clip of 5 where they're on this like slider thing, and you insert that into the top, and then you have to press down, and it takes quite a bit of force in order to do it. But you have to press all the bullets down in there, and then take the little clip slider thing out, and then you can put the bolt back. It's a pain in the ass, but it was much better than single loading
Bolt action, boom. Yeah.
And I think these ones are semi-automatic too. So
it's just fire off 5, reload, yada yada.
Yeah,
They actually started off with 3.
But they do seem a little bit technologically advanced.
Could you imagine just having 3 shots?
Oh,
God.
But at least it's not like they're running around with like World War II weapons. So
right.
I can at least give the show that. It's not like Battlefield 1 or something. Playing that game really annoys me because of all the automatic weapons.
All the reliable automatic weapons.
super reliable automatic weapons.
Definitely not a technology in its infancy.
Yeah. It makes me laugh a little bit when I play that game. But anyway, so she runs into magical interference and then notices the company flying towards her, and she tells the communications officer that she's talking to. She reports that there's a company of mages and she's all by herself, and then requests to leave the battlefield, and the communications officer's like, sorry, you're gonna have to stay. Delay them for 600 seconds. Yes, delay them for 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
I like when it's like kind of doing his like internal like close-up monologue. 600 seconds? That's enough time to heat, eat, and clean up an instant meal. You gotta be kidding me.
And again, actually, through most of the moments where you even just come in, zoom in on Tanya's face, the eyes, they still have it. It's just so distorted in a way.
Actually, I felt that the facial features weren't quite as.
I'm not talking about like art-wise, like distorted. There's just something about them that just.
She is kind of off.
Yeah, that's it. She's just off.
Yeah, I didn't feel that the facial features were quite as off-putting in this episode as they were in the first. Maybe I'm just getting used to them.
Also, I think that they are doing. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but I'm wondering, like, where's or there was one scene where she's sitting there, doing this, and I'm wondering what the hell is she doing? Is she like? It actually held on to that scene for a good 5-10 seconds, and then she all of a sudden just starts busting out laughing. That one scene, I can't tell what's going on in her head. Like it actually bugs me a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, she's like holding her hand back or something. It's like, is she trying to prevent herself from like going, from just like yelling, going batshit crazy, or trying to calm herself down?
I think she's running through strategies in her head.
Is she actually like praying,
or resisting the urge to pray? Perhaps
that's what's going through my head. It's like,
what the hell is she doing?
This is like a praying moment to normal soldiers.
Yeah, but the way she was holding her hand, I had to make the joke. Must not fap.
But it was one of those scenes that I'm actually curious what kind of emotion was going through her head.
It could be interpreted a number of different ways, I guess.
Because like after that, it was just like laughter, and then
she just loses her shit.
She just takes off all of her communication stuff,
and then wrecks the enemy's shit.
Yeah,
maybe that was it. I heard
like she said something along the lines of, I get to go out a hero now. So
yeah. Maybe that's it. That's the moment where she like became like a super, just badass. I don't know. She's like lost less of her inhibitions and just.
I'm still of the opinion that she was just running strategies through her head on how to get out of the situation, how to leave. Because we do see it later after she does the whole self-destructing thing and then falls, to the ground. I think she's running through situations on how to leave the battlefield without disobeying orders.
Right.
So I think that's what she was doing there.
And then when she found her airplane, she's like, oh, shit.
Yeah, it's like, well, fuck.
Might as well laugh.
This is my best option.
Ugh, boy.
But, yeah, basically she turns around and wrecks the enemy shit. Not quite as wrecks the enemy shit as we saw in the first episode, but...
For a rookie.
A rookie, she does basically destroy...
Like
I think she kills
girl.
everybody except the battalion commander who didn't enter the fight himself.
Yeah.
The one company commander whose arm she shot off, he did not die. Well, he didn't die there anyway.
And I think there was a small, like, three set people.
Yeah, there was a few people that ran in to protect that company commander, but everybody else died. Like, she killed everybody else. And I just like the kind of coup de grace for the ending where she runs in, basically tackles this guy, puts him in a headlock, and then self-destructs her crystal. And in the last moment before she self-destructs the crystal, she puts a shield around herself and then, falls to the ground all, beat up and whatnot.
But still faking it, at least what she can anyway.
Yeah, basically, this was the perfect way to leave the battlefield while still doing my job.
But as poor Tanya figures out, in the military, no good deed goes unpunished.
While she's in the hospital recovering from actually pretty extensive injuries.
Yeah. Well, from being blown up and then suffering a crash landing.
Yeah, I assume that she probably slowed herself down with her own magical power.
Yeah, I'm still assuming she still got fucked up in that process.
Probably. But yeah, while she's recovering in the hospital, she gets she meets a bunch of the higher ups, and they give her some high class merit.
The silver wings.
Yeah, they give her ace wings,
basically, and she realizes that she fucked up. Don't tell me they're gonna make this as an excuse to send me to the front. Okay, Tanya, I won't tell you. And then we see a little funny bit at the end where where they have a photo shoot that's kind of for propaganda for her.
Yeah, because she kind
her
of gained
award.
some celebrity through her efforts. I mean,
Where
understandable.
I assume that this is where she met Victoria.
Yeah, so we see her in the background.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just funny because basically they make her dress up in actual women's clothes, and like they do makeup and everything, and just that scene where it like pans up and it's just like, kill me,
Bruh.
That one time a tomboy decides to get dressed up.
right? Kill me.
What am I doing?
But yeah, then turns it around and basically goes, oh no, I can use this to my advantage.
It's part of the job.
It's part of the job. So
Oh god.
I have to imagine Tanya's inner thoughts with that gravelly voice she just pulled off. It's just part of the job. Sort of like 5 packs a day kind of.
yeah. So as far as the enjoyment goes, I definitely enjoyed this more than the first episode,
Right.
which is actually saying something.
Well, I think the
first episode was enjoyable, but it was overall just a introduction to the world.
First episode was more of the sizzle. This episode is more of the steak.
yeah, I can definitely agree with that. The first episode is definitely more about spectacle and the introduction of the majority of the world. This one is
Mainly the concept of magic, how it applies.
Yeah,
to
this
world.
one is more character building for Tanya, which I find absolutely interesting the way that they did it,
and hilarious.
and hilarious.
And
We also get
thought-provoking,
basically the meeting points for Victoria,
Eric,
Eric, and how Tanya is going to get a upgrade.
wait, oh yeah, we were shown basically this, I guess, kind of
mad
mad
scientist.
scientist working on the round jewel that we see her use in the first episode.
So, yeah, that's
Along with a new scooter.
Yeah, a whole new gear as well. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but even with, like I said, this being more of the steak, as it were, even with this being more of a story-based episode, the story is still very simple. Very simple, kind of plain, easy to take in, and I love it because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think as long as this series kind of stays on that path, I think that it could end up being one of the best series this season.
Yeah, because I mean, even with that little the dialogue between back then the unnamed salaryman and Bean or creator X, a very thought-provoking, a philosophical debate between two very different beings, but still doesn't bog the story down, doesn't bog the enjoyment down.
Indeed.
So looking forward to more.
So looking forward to more.
I can see why you guys love this series.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let us know what you thought of the anime, what you thought of our reaction in the comment section below.
Yep, thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you don't.
But that's gonna do it for this episode of Anime Reaction. As always, I'm DK.
I'm Zero.
And I'm Rizzo. See you next time.
Go ahead and click on my face to go to our most recent Otaku Saga talks.
Click on my face to go to Otaku Saga Gaming, our gaming channel.
And click on the waifu to subscribe to Otaku Saga. And check out our new and improved Patreon page.